Okay, well, it looks like I'm going to be doing this over again because I didn't record any of that. So, broadcasting live from the Apache Portal Room. It's 11:37 p.m. on June the 7th, 2025. Okay, today I'm here to talk about magnetic energy and my experience with them and that topic. There's a Let me start first by showing the room. Yeah, no, that arm up there, bring the arm down. There you go. No, 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 don't touch me. I want to get another guy on me. Okay, well, there's our friend there. Okay, so the topic today is magnetic energy. Okay, there's our second guy. Okay, um, the first two entities that I had experience with, uh, the, the second entity was the person that was killed, the original event that caused that location to be a portal. Okay, um, that guy was decapitated by the Apache. And he would display himself as a guy. He would be sitting at a chair like this guy here, but the difference was he was holding his head in his right arm. And so, with the Connect system looking for two eyes and a mouth, okay, and a unique key signature, it found the two eyes and a mouth, but it found it in the middle of its body. Okay, so what you would have is you would have the head in the middle and the arms and the legs were coming off it. So it looked like a four-legged spider on the screen in terms of the stick figure. But he was the only guy that was identifiable. And he would bother me. He would stay in the bed. Regardless of whether I was in it, that's where he would stay. Either under the bed or inside the box spring in the mattress. I couldn't really tell. I just know it was at the foot of the bed in one of the corners. And he would stay there. He wouldn't ever leave that. The only time he would ever bother me outside of the house is when I went to sleep. But in the daytime, he never followed me out of the house. Not in the car or nothing. Okay, and so one day I had a doctor's appointment in the morning, and on my way to the appointment, I can feel this thing bothering me in the car on the way there. And I didn't know what to make of it. I thought it was odd. I get into the doctor's office. I'm there for an MRI, and I'm sitting in the waiting room on a wooden chair with cushioning on it, and it was the back of the chair was not solid, so there was at the lumbar area of the back it's blank. So what I was feeling was in the lumbar area. It was able to harass me, so I was getting itchy in my lower back, and it was poking me and doing different stuff. Nothing that was particularly horrible, but I didn't know, knowing that in the while I'm having the MRI, I have to stay still, and this thing is going to make that very difficult at best. So I get into the exam room. They put me in the machine. I could feel this thing. The unique property, this character had a few different unique properties, but one of them, it wasn't just his appearance. And the reason why he was what I would say he was a stud horse, in that he taught the rest of the guys how to do what they know how to do now. Uh, and that's not a good thing. He taught them how to do all kinds of horrific stuff. But one of the things that they have never been able to achieve is they can't get inside of my body. Now, physically, this guy was able to get inside my body. And basically, he would do this. If I were standing here and he were standing here, he would do this. Okay? And so once he stood there, overlapping me for, let's say 90 seconds, all of a sudden, that part of his body, like if he had his left arm overlapping, he can get his left arm inside of my body and then start poking things inside there, like inside of my chest cavity. Sometimes he would just get in there and he would just jab me in the belly. And he had knocked my stomach out of position because I could feel my stomach and my gut adjusting at times when it wasn't bothering me because it had moved things down there. It would just wait till it had enough energy, and then it would lay one good shot to the belly and you'd feel it. Anyway, I get into the MRI machine and they turn it on my lumbar spine as I'm laying on my back, and I feel this thing in my body become the size of like an orange or a baseball, and it's right at my lumbar spine, and it's sitting there, and I'm just there frozen, not knowing what this thing is going to do next. And what I was hoping that the MRI tech was going to say, hey, I'm seeing something here, and that's weird. And, if that was the case, I would ask him to take an image of the weird thing he's seeing, and then I would ask to see it, right? Because then we'd be able to identify it visually. But he didn't say anything like that. He just said, no, you need to stay still, and he had to redo the first go around. And, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the OBS software. I don't know what the difference is between a broadcast and a stream, but I don't know why I have to shut both of them off, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, it's the guy's redoing the MRI. He's going another pass, and I stay still. I don't do anything, and this thing, it never moved. It stayed baseball size until they turned the machine off, and then it was back to normal. But it stopped bothering me after that. And it never followed me out of the house during the daytime again. That was the one and only time it did it. Now, I'm not a big believer in the supernatural or somebody knowing the future or anything like that. And everything told me, based on the information I was given, was that this guy was killed by the Apache at a time before electricity existed. So he wouldn't have the foggiest idea of what an MRI is. However, the fact that he only followed me out that day leads me to believe that he was actually giving me the answer. He was telling me how to manipulate him, and he was telling me basically how to freeze any of them in place. And so from that point on, the other test that I was able to run had to do with the Faraday Fabric. Okay, the Faraday Fabric, the magnetic energy is not able to pierce that, so if I made a bag of that fabric, which I did, which I just took a piece of fabric, I folded it over, and then I taped it shut using Faraday tape. And so if you got in the bag, it was airtight. You couldn't get out if I got into the bag and I tied it off. So I would climb in, and then it would come up to above my waist. If they would get in with me, they would start bothering my leg. I would just tie a rubber belt around my waist, and then they were stuck. They couldn't get out. And they would try, but I wouldn't let them. And what I would end up doing is I would take my left leg out of the bag and then tie the belt around my left quad just above my knee. Okay, and I could feel it when it got stuck there. I could feel it come up right underneath where I had that rubber belt. And trying to, like water, just trying to find a way, a pinhole out of there so it could snake its way out of that particular predicament. But I wasn't gonna let them out. And when they did that, it just made that ring around my leg, right where the rubber hose was. It was just uncontrollably itchy. I mean, you just couldn't stop yourself from having to do that, right? Just scratch, 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 scratch. So, the longest period of time that I kept them strapped to my leg was 4 days. And I was doing that in an attempt to reduce the magnetic energy in the room because I knew that's what they were feeding off of. Okay? Once we were able to identify that, because I eventually I asked people who had a better understanding of electricity than me, which is pretty much everybody, and I asked them what they thought of the MRI situation. And they said it's more likely that the thing was frozen in place by the electromagnet than it is that it was just, feeding off of that MRI machine's energy, right? Which was, to me, the two obvious options. But no, they felt like, no, this thing was frozen. It couldn't move. Meaning if I was able to slide out of the MRI machine, that it would have stayed there. It would have been stuck there. Okay? And in the absence of an alternative explanation, that's what I believe. I believe that a strong enough magnet could hold them in place. Okay, but obviously it seems impractical for me to get an MRI machine just to prove it. But I do have an MRI that's coming up in 3 weeks. So I will be able to do this test again as I'll just bring them out as soon as I get into the machine and see what happens to them, see how they feel. My guess is the next time I get into the MRI, and the first one's going to be on lumbar spine, when they do that, it's going to immediately freeze, but outside of my body, not inside. I don't think it's going to force it inside of my body. At least I hope not. The other example I can give, this setup here in this room is not dissimilar from the original Apache portal room. Okay, and the reason for that is, or what I mean by that is the stereo receiver. I had a desk with a tower on top of the desk. Okay, it was vertical. I didn't have a lot of horizontal space, and so at the floor of that desk area was my stereo receiver, which was oriented vertically as well. And whenever I would sit down and had the sound on, either music or if it was a game, for example, they would pull just tug, 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 tug. They would tug at my shorts. right? And every time he didn't, of course, you just look down there and there's nothing there. And, the first dozen times it happened, I was able to convince myself it didn't happen. But then it was just so consistent. It's every 5 to 10 minutes, tuck, 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 tuck. Now, common sense should have dictated that they were getting the energy locally, okay? And if I had to guess, I would have guessed that they were getting the energy from the PC. But the reality was they were getting the energy from the stereo receiver. I know that for a fact because as soon as I turned the receiver off, the condition of the tugging at my shorts stopped. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about magnetic energy. I mean, if you get a tri-field meter and you put that around old stereo equipment or a PC with its cover off, oh, you will give it a ridiculous amount of energy. Yeah, they'll be able to feed off of that all night. Also, ceiling fans or any kind of fans, they're able to draw off that energy. So if you've got a fan, you don't want to put it right next to where you are in the bed because they'll be able to just draw off that all night. They won't have to actually store that energy. They'll just use the energy that the fan motor is bleeding. And I have yet, with a tri-field meter, I have yet to take it to any fan motor that did not bleed magnetic energy. Okay? Now, one of the things that they're able to do is they're able to copy any image or any sound and they're able to display it back. That includes infrared. And so if you've got a remote like I had in the last house, I had a remote that controlled the ceiling fan. It was the only way to turn it on and off. And so they were able to, even with the battery not in the remote and the capacitors emptied of all electricity, they were able to turn the fan and the light on in that room because what they had done was they saw me turn it on and off and they just copied the image and then they play it back at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was okay when they were turning the fan on. You just got to get a little warmer, but sometimes they would turn the light on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was a nuisance. So I had to cut the electricity off. They didn't have enough energy to be able to hit the switch, and they're not smart enough to do a two-step process, even if they were. They're more persistent than smart. I mean, as you can see by the hide and seek, they're actually not really able to. They're not that smart. It takes them a long time to find where you are, even when you tell them. So I'll do this test once more. Hey, over here. Hey, 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 hey. This guy's pretty good. There he is. This guy's pretty fast. I think it has to do with how much experience they have with that game. This guy's pretty fast, so I think it has to do with how much experience they have with the game. If they don't have any experience with the fabric, they don't know what they're doing. But this guy seems to have like, if they don't have any experience with the fabric, they seem like they're not even as smart as a 2-year-old. But this guy, he found it right away. So this guy seems like it's as intelligent as, 10 or 11-year-old. Something that's going to find you immediately if you're ducking around a piece of fabric like that. Anyway, that's the last test I'm running today, mainly because I have the ball here, the cat toy, which you can see he's not touching it right now. Okay, the reason why I'm not having him play with it is because the power has gone out and there's no way to charge this thing. Yeah, see, sorry about this guy, but yep, battery's dead and there's no way to charge this thing. So if you want to take a shot at it, though, I'll put it down for you. Ready? Go ahead, hit this ball as hard as you can. See if you can make it light up. Go ahead, I'm going to put it right here. Go ahead, hit it. Oh, he's not, there he goes. Go ahead, hit it again. Hit it. Hit the ball. Move it over here. Hit it over here. Go ahead, hit the ball. Yeah, hit this ball. Yeah, it'll light up if you hit it. See this ball right here? Yeah, you got to hit it. Yeah, here you go. Yeah, put it right here. Go ahead. Hit it like that. Real, bam! No, this guy's not showing any interest in the ball. I'll have to get a new one and see what this thing does with it, but it's not lighting up, so I guess he doesn't have any interest in playing with it if he can't move it. Interesting. That's the first time he didn't play with the ball when I left it out for him. You don't want to hit the ball? Hit it like that. I can't tell if he's trying to hit that with his left arm or not. Let me get him out of the chair. Here, go away. Now you sit in the chair. Oh, shit. Okay. All right, we got a new player in the chair here. See this ball? Hit it. If you hit it real hard, you'll make it light up. Ready? Go ahead. Put it right there. Hit it. This guy. Oh, see, yeah, he's trying to touch it. Harder. Okay, good. Yeah, this guy's a little smarter. Yeah. So we got one real idiot here. One that can't find me behind a sheet. But the rest of them seem to be pretty smart. Maybe the stupid one just needs more experience. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about today. In next week's broadcast, I'm going to bring back some sound equipment for some testing. I'll try to get a new cat toy in here. And I'm going to discuss about what their capabilities are. You know, the horror show aspect of what they can do, which is not particularly horrific. It's far more of a nuisance than it is horror, that's for sure. Okay, that's it for me. I'm signing out. Thanks, guys.